This is video from Salvador. We have a drone there. They captured a group of migrants illegally crossing into California and heading towards U.S. Border Patrol officers.
I think it's gotten more broken, if that's possible, in the 30 years that I've worked.
California, it's estimated that tens of thousands of migrants are waiting for Title 42 restrictions to end so they can enter the U.S. and seek asylum.
This is deeply troubling news for all undocumented immigrants currently living in the United States. Following his re-election as president, Donald Trump has made a bold promise to launch an extensive deportation program that aims to remove millions of people residing in the country without legal status.
Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken.
His administration claims this initiative will address what they see as a long-standing issue. But the scale of the proposal has left many concerned. Of course, carrying out such an ambitious plan is far from simple and will pose a massive challenge for the Trump administration. The United States faces a continuous wave of undocumented immigrants entering the country, with estimates reaching an overwhelming 200,000 people every single month, adding up to nearly 3 million individuals each year. This enormous influx has made immigration policy a hotly debated issue, sparking widespread controversy and dividing opinions among political elites and the general public. Many view the plan as necessary, while others see it as unjust and inhumane, leading to heated debates nationwide. Regardless of the differing perspectives, the presence of so many undocumented immigrants has undeniably become a source of tension and concern across various sectors. Both government officials and ordinary citizens have voiced frustrations over the situation. And the statistics make it clear why. According to the Migration Policy Institute, the total number of undocumented immigrants in the United States has exceeded a staggering 11 million people. This alarming figure continues to grow year after year, heightening the urgency of the issue. These millions of undocumented individuals are spread throughout the country, with large populations concentrated in significant states like California, Texas, Florida, and New York. These states, vital to the nation's economy and culture, are among the hardest hit by the influx. Naturally, this raises an essential and often overlooked question: where are all these undocumented immigrants originally coming from? China ranks among the top contributors to the population of undocumented immigrants in the United States. According to reliable data, the number of Chinese nationals living in the U.S. without legal documentation has reached an estimated 210,000 people. This is a substantial figure, considering the complexities involved in their journey. Many of these individuals reportedly begin their migration by flying to Ecuador, one of the few countries in the Americas that allows Chinese passport holders to enter without requiring a visa. From Ecuador, they embark on a long and treacherous route heading northward. Their journey often takes them through dense and dangerous jungles in regions controlled by drug cartels, passing through countries such as Colombia, Panama, and Costa Rica before eventually reaching Mexico. While this route may sound straightforward when described, the reality is far from easy. These migrants face numerous life-threatening risks along the way, including violent robberies by armed criminals and exploitation or extortion by corrupt law enforcement officials in the regions they traverse. The journey is fraught with challenges at every step, making their pursuit of a better life both harrowing and uncertain. After entering Mexico, many of these individuals eventually cross into the United States to begin what they hope will be a new and better life. A significant number of undocumented immigrants from China have admitted that their courage to undertake such a risky journey stems from their desire to experience freedom in the U.S., which they feel is unavailable in their home country. Additionally, China's worsening economic conditions have been a major driving factor, pushing many to migrate in search of stability and opportunity that they believe America can offer. Ranking even higher than China, India is another country contributing a significant number of undocumented immigrants to the U.S. Currently, it is estimated that the United States is home to at least 220,000 undocumented immigrants from India, placing it 9th on the list. Interestingly, the majority of these individuals originally come through Canada. Canada's policies, such as temporary work permits and express entry programs for skilled migrants, have made it a popular initial destination. However, many Indian migrants view the U.S. as offering far greater opportunities, including lower taxes and higher wages, which has led to a sharp increase in undocumented crossings from Canada into the U.S. Nevertheless, crossing the northern border is far from a simple or risk-free endeavor. Migrants often face harsh winter conditions, with freezing temperatures that can be life-threatening during their journey. However, compared to the treacherous southern route through Mexico, many consider the northern path from Canada to be relatively safer and less grueling. Even so, a substantial number of undocumented immigrants are apprehended by U.S. authorities at the border and subsequently deported back to their countries of origin. Next on the list is Brazil, another major source of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Brazil ranks 8th, with an estimated 230,000 undocumented immigrants residing in the country. Much like the migrants from China, many Brazilian immigrants must endure extreme and hazardous conditions to make their way into the U.S. via the southern border with Mexico. Their journeys often take them through difficult and dangerous regions, requiring immense determination and resilience before they finally reach American soil. In reality, most individuals migrating illegally to the U.S. through Brazil are not actually Brazilian citizens. Reports indicate that Brazil is primarily being used as a transit point for illegal immigration. It has been revealed that migrants from countries like India, Vietnam, and Nepal often seek asylum in Brazil first, taking advantage of its protective policies. Once granted temporary refuge, they remain in Brazil for about 30 days before continuing their journey to the U.S. Interestingly, if these migrants are apprehended by U.S. authorities, they are not deported back to their countries of origin. Instead, they are sent back to Brazil, the last country they passed through. To address this growing issue, the Brazilian government has announced plans to tighten regulations on entering the country without a visa, aiming to curb the misuse of its immigration system. Contributing approximately 240,000 undocumented immigrants to the United States. The surge in migration from Colombia to the U.S. is largely tied to the country's ongoing internal struggles. Decades of armed conflict, coupled with economic challenges that were further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, have pushed many Colombians to seek a better life abroad. For many, the U.S. represents a beacon of hope and the possibility of a fresh start, away from the turmoil back home. Colombian migrants often take a perilous route, traveling through Panama before eventually arriving in Mexico, where they cross into the United States. But the influx of undocumented immigrants from Colombia is not without consequences for the U.S. economy. One notable impact is the increasing competition for low-skilled jobs, as the availability of such positions becomes more limited with the growing presence of undocumented workers. Moving on to the 6th spot, Venezuela stands out as one of the largest contributors to undocumented immigration in the United States. with an estimated 320,000 individuals. This figure is staggering and reflects the dire situation in Venezuela, which has forced many to flee their homeland. Several factors contribute to this wave of migration, including severe political instability, widespread violence, and failing public services such as healthcare and infrastructure. Additionally, Venezuela's collapsing economy has played a significant role in driving migration. Rampant inflation, skyrocketing living costs, and extremely low wages have left many with no choice but to seek opportunities elsewhere. For these migrants, the U.S. offers a chance at stability and a shot at rebuilding their lives far from the hardships they face at home. Just like migrants from several other countries, Venezuelan immigrants also predominantly use the U.S.-Mexico border as their entry point into the United States. However, a significant number of these migrants are apprehended by U.S. authorities during their attempts to cross. To date, at least 54,933 undocumented Venezuelans have been detained by border enforcement officials. In response, U.S. Customs and Border Protection began conducting deportation flights, sending many of these individuals back to Venezuela. This marked a shift toward more stringent enforcement targeting the growing wave of migrants from the region. The Philippines, a Southeast Asian nation, has also contributed significantly to the growing list of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Ranking fifth, the U.S. is estimated to host around 350,000 undocumented Filipinos. This has become a pressing issue for the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., prompting their ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, to urge undocumented Filipinos to voluntarily leave the country before stricter immigration policies under the Trump administration take effect. But this raises an important question. How did so many Filipinos end up in the U.S. without proper documentation? Unlike migrants from many other countries, Filipinos do not typically enter the United States illegally. Reports suggest that most initially arrive in the U.S. through legitimate means, such as with temporary visas. However, after staying for extended periods, many overstay their visas, which eventually renders them undocumented. This common pattern highlights the unique circumstances behind the Filipino undocumented immigrant population in America. Taking the fourth spot, Honduras is one of the leading contributors to the undocumented immigrant population in the U.S., with an estimated 560,000 individuals residing in the country without legal status. Unlike the Philippines, Honduras is geographically much closer to the U.S., making it significantly easier for its citizens to migrate by crossing through Mexico and entering via the southern border. The wave of migration from Honduras to the United States is driven by multiple deep-rooted issues within the country. One of the primary factors is widespread gang violence, which has forced many Hondurans to abandon their businesses and livelihoods as criminal groups demand extortion payments, choking the economy. Corruption is another pervasive issue, with many feeling disillusioned by their government's inability to provide safety, stability, or opportunities. These challenges leave countless Hondurans with little choice but to flee in search of a better and more secure life in the United States. Entering the top three, El Salvador ranks as the third largest contributor of undocumented immigrants in the United States. An estimated 10,000 undocumented immigrants from El Salvador are spread across various states in the U.S. Similar to its neighboring country, Honduras, the majority of Salvadorans enter the U.S. by traveling north through Mexico, using the southern border as their primary point of entry. But what drives so many Salvadorans to leave their homeland behind and undertake such a risky journey? El Salvador is the smallest country in Central America, but also the most densely populated. Unfortunately, this dense population has not translated into a thriving economy. the nation's economic growth has stagnated, leaving many citizens with limited opportunities to improve their quality of life. Adding to these challenges are alarmingly high levels of crime and violence, driven in part by gang activity, which creates a constant sense of insecurity for many Salvadorans. Furthermore, natural disasters, such as earthquakes and hurricanes, frequently devastate the country, pushing even more people to migrate, often without proper documentation. For many, the United States represents their only chance to escape these hardships and start anew. Guatemala takes the second spot, with a staggering 750,000 undocumented immigrants currently residing in the United States. Its close proximity to Mexico, which serves as a key transit route for reaching the U.S., has made Guatemala one of the primary sources of undocumented migration. This geographic advantage has contributed to the significant flow of migrants attempting to cross the U.S.-Mexico border in search of better opportunities. The reasons behind Guatemala's mass migration are multifaceted and deeply rooted in the nation's struggles. Economic instability is a major factor, with widespread poverty and unemployment driving countless Guatemalans to leave in search of work. Violence and government corruption further exacerbate the situation, as many citizens lose faith in their leaders' ability to address the country's pressing issues. Additionally, Guatemala has been severely impacted by extreme climate changes, including prolonged droughts and unpredictable weather patterns that have devastated agricultural livelihoods. Despite the ongoing migration crisis, there is hope for progress, as the governments of the United States, Mexico, and Guatemala have pledged to collaborate on strategies to manage and reduce undocumented migration into the U.S. Taking the top spot as the largest source of undocumented immigrants in the United States is none other than Mexico. Known not only as a transit point for migrants from various countries, but also as the #1 contributor to the undocumented population in the U.S. Mexico accounts for an astonishing 4.8 million undocumented immigrants. The country, often referred to by its nickname El Tri, has long been at the center of discussions about immigration in the United States. A significant portion of migrants from Mexico, as well as those from other nations crossing through Mexico, rely on human smugglers to help them navigate the perilous journey across the U.S.-Mexico border. These smugglers, commonly referred to as coyotajes or coyotes, operate as part of vast criminal networks that span the region. In addition to Mexican nationals, these networks also facilitate the smuggling of migrants from other parts of the world. For example, Chinese migrants are often assisted by criminal groups known as snakeheads, who charge exorbitant fees of up to $70,000 per person. Interestingly, many migrants pay this hefty fee only after finding work in the U.S., highlighting the desperation and determination of those seeking a better life. There are several key reasons why many Mexicans leave their homeland to migrate to the United States, often illegally. The promise of better economic opportunities is a major driving force, as many individuals struggle with limited job prospects and low wages in Mexico. In addition, widespread violence and corruption in Mexico create unsafe living conditions, compelling many to seek safety and stability across the border. The lack of adequate job creation in Mexico further fuels this migration, as people look to the U.S. for a chance to provide for their families and secure a future. Despite the large number of Mexican immigrants, concerns persist among many Americans about the potential for criminal activity linked to undocumented migrants. There is a perception that some may carry over the violence prevalent in Mexico to the United States. However, evidence does not always support these fears. Take, for example, the city of El Paso, Texas, a city known for hosting one of the largest populations of Mexican immigrants in the U.S. Despite this, El Paso consistently ranks as one of the safest cities in the country, with a homicide rate of just 2.4 per 100,000 residents. This statistic highlights that undocumented immigrants from Mexico are not inherently linked to criminal behavior, offering a counterpoint to the common narrative.